The Smarter Than You podcast, where I talk to people in the tech sales hiring world, like Kelsey Klevenberger. Welcome. And we're going to talk about tech sales, hiring, things that hiring managers and applicants might be benefiting from here in this very interesting sales world that we're living in. My goal and part of this podcast is brought to you by my company, Talent Reach, and we're a boutique sales recruiting
You train too.
recruiting firm. I know, right? It needs some more coffee and really focusing on helping hiring managers get their time back through things like wading through thousands of resumes that don't make any sense. Kelsey, I'll ask you a little bit about that here in a second. Or trying to figure out what an A player looks like. I like to talk about sort of A player versus B players because it's a very subjective term from place to place. So my goal here, Kelsey, and give you an introduction. I want you to please talk about Column, pitch of anything that you're working on, anything that you need from my network or anybody who's out there that might be watching. And then we're going to dig in. I want to spend about the next hour talking about some of the things that you're seeing in your world and get you to pull out your crystal ball and tell us what's coming. So, Kelsey, introduce yourself. Give us the 30-second commercial about you and what you're up to at Column.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I have been friends with Jeff Sears, the other Jeff at Talent Reach, for about 3 years now, and so I've been following the company through the ups and downs of growth and then some contraction during COVID, and now bringing on folks like yourself to be leaders in your area within the company. So that's been a ton of fun. So my first pitch is to Talent Reach. I've sourced through Talent Reach at 2 different companies and have used Jeff's network for looking at opportunities for myself. So thanks for all the work that you're doing over there. My name is Kelsey. I am the head of sales at Column. We're a post-Series A startup focusing on making public information systems more valuable. And I know that's a little bit vague. So our primary product right now is modernizing the public notice process for publishers and individual filers. If you've ever had a name change or needed to file a marriage license, you may have had to make a public notice to the public, and we're making that process more streamlined through our software. It's a ton of fun. I work with a lot of incredibly talented folks. Some of the information I'll be using today came from my head of people, Melissa Tice, who's extremely talented in the people realm, and I've learned a lot through my hiring process. And now that I'm hiring folks myself for my team, it's been really eye-opening to look back at what I used to do and what best practices are now and couple those together. And yeah, I'm in the Bellingham, Washington area. I live up here with my family. I have a wife and daughter, and got my start in Seattle tech in 2012 at a company called ZipWhip that was acquired by Twilio last summer for $850 million. Really fun ride there, 7.5 years, and bounced around a little bit during COVID and found a home at Column. So scaling that business with some really talented, fun folks, and making time for chats like this with Jeff.
Well, right on. That's right on. Any particular specific project you're working on right now? Anything that Column's up to that you want to pitch?
We just launched an API. It's very, very cool. We're aggregating publicly available data that nobody else has bothered to or put the effort into making available in a API format. So our talented CTO, Leo Henschker, is leading that charge with a team. We call it data utility. So how can we get utility to people that's publicly available that haven't had it in the past, and what can they go and use that information for that we don't even have eyes for right now or the imagination for, because we're just 55 folks spread across the US and Asia and South America. So that's really fun. And then scaling a team. I haven't done that for a few years, Jeff. It's been really cool to welcome on folks from across the country. We have a rep in Lima, Peru, all along the West Coast, in North Carolina, Florida, New York. So scaling teams and watching the development of individuals on my team, and really getting better myself through my team is really what brings me a lot of joy and keeps me in this space. So project number one is scaling our core product through revenue growth and bringing people on that are really highly talented and that do a lot of elements of sales much better than I do. I I think the most heartwarming story so far for me personally, just somebody that directly reports to me, is a gal by the name of Nirvana Little Dairy. Really, really talented, connected gal who was looking for what she calls that broken rung. She wanted to be in management, had performed well as an AE, but couldn't get that shot to be a manager because she didn't have the experience that most startups were looking for. She interviewed super well. My people ops team had qualified her as a really strong candidate. I was blown away by her preparation and energy on the call, and so we fixed that broken rung for her by giving her a BDA team lead position. She's in management, and she's really more capable than I am in many ways already. So just meeting folks like that and being able to be involved in people's career growth like that is what gets me up in the morning. Not the software.
That's all. And you jumped ahead. I want to come back. I love that concept of fixing the broken rung.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to that. Who are you and your sales team targeting? Who buys Column?
It's a great question. We are targeting publishers, and we do that a couple of ways. One, through traditional outbound sales, like you would see at any other SaaS company. But two is through our relationships with state press associations. We come to them and we say, hey, we can help if it's a state mandate that you have public notices processed on a website. We'll do that for you. We know how to do that, and then we'd love to have conversations with all of the publishers in your state. So we have a channel, that's our main channel, and then the other way is traditional outbounding.
So
and we have conversations
like
with
across
them.
the board. Is this a
Yeah,
digital as well as print?
yeah, it is. It is. So most of the time, public notices will have to be on a piece of paper, right, for accessibility issues. So it has to be digital and it has to be print. And so I think that's the really unique thing here from a SaaS perspective is we are a SaaS tool. We're a very progressive tech company, but we're also filling in and fixing holes in a process that was built just for a piece of paper that we open, right? So in the Bellingham Herald, if they used Column, the public notice would be available on their e-edition, but it also has to what we call paginate down to their paper as well. So there's some complexities there. There's some niche elements to it. But yeah, it's essentially making it easier to get public notices out to the public through our software, but it does have to comply and fit onto a printed piece of paper as well. And if you see our website, really, really cool rebranding led by Kevin King, our head of brand. It's got some paper texture to it, so we're trying to stay true to that medium that we're working in, that industry that we're working in. So it's kind of fun. There's a printing press and all of these paper elements that bring the brand home and drive home what we're doing.
Awesome. So it's one of those moving people from pen and paper or something, managing something on an Excel spreadsheet, like a spend management platform where you're like, look, you got to get out of the 18th century, and you help move them, the digital migration.
It's improving the process. They have to do public notices, right? Because it's a state mandate. So like, let us make it easier for you as a publisher and easier for the single filer, right? Doing a name change. They don't want to email. They don't want to have to wait for an affidavit to show up in the mail. They want it done digitally. They want to pay bills online. They want to do everything digitally if they can. But also this fits into the world that you live in. We know that you have to have a certain column width and a certain leading and a certain font and a header and a footer. We get that world. We can help you with that too. Okay. But let's make things more efficient within your world.
Excellent. Thank you. I asked for a reason because it'll lead us to sort of the types of teams sales teams you need to build, because no matter what we're selling, being able to connect and understand, the end user's needs. I wouldn't have thought about leading and fonts.
Yeah, neither did I. I didn't until I started. I didn't know what I was getting into.
So let me ask the recruiter question. Are you hiring now?
We are, yeah. We've got open AE roles right now, and we've got some open roles across the company. So yeah, we're hiring. We budget every month. We do things in a way that feels right to me, which is not, oh, there's product market fit, go hire 100 people, and that equates to $10 million in revenue in a year. To me, just the capacity-based forecasting doesn't work, and it's a silly way to go about things. We're doing things in a way that we can grow and feel comfortable in times like this, where folks aren't looking over their shoulders wondering if they're going to be let go. So we have money in the bank, and we're growing slowly with people, and we're waiting for the right time to really accelerate that growth and pour gas on the fire.
So I'd like to point out to everybody who's listening, they're hiring. The sky is not falling.
We are hiring.
There are people who the approach that you're talking about, is that something that's a fit for your size of company, and when you decide to scale, you kind of have to toss that out, or what we're seeing with a lot of the layoffs, results of not adhering to that kind of I'll call it a wise approach. I realize that we may.
Yeah, it's a good question. It feels like maybe a little bit later stage B or C. There comes a time where it's really expected that you really add that headcount. But if you don't have the infrastructure in place to support those folks, like we can't onboard 10 people right now, even if we did have really good indications that we were going to 2x 3x revenue in the next couple months. We have to be able to train those folks, make sure they know how to sell, understand the industry, feel comfortable in the remote environment, and feel supported, and feel like they have a sense of community. And I think that gets lost at some point when you get excited and see that the company's growing at a certain rate. It feels like certain boards, certain executive teams just say more people is the answer. And certainly it helps, and getting really talented people is the true key, as we all know. But doing it at the right time and in a way that's sustainable is something that really appeals to me. And when I was looking for a new role, I just wanted people to be reasonable, and not believe their own hype too much. And I'm glad for that, because I think the folks that did believe their hype a lot in 2020 and 2021 are in a position that they don't want to be in right now. So staying humble, and
surely it's been tempting over the past what you've seen over the last couple of years to fall into that. Fair?
For sure. Yeah, totally fair. Yeah, you understand it. You understand where it comes from, but gosh, these are some pretty big misses, right? When we look at it's hard for me to comprehend the size of some of these companies, first off, right? When you see 8, 10, 12,000 folks getting laid off, it's hard to believe there are companies that size for me, just because my world's so small with startups, Series A, Series B. But yeah, I get it, and it is exciting, and there's that. I think it's so, we talk about it, Jeff, so much about being we're scaling from 1 to 10 million, as if that's an overnight thing, and it's really such a long, difficult process. It just doesn't happen overnight, and
it takes discipline. It's more than just the goal of scaling. It's everybody's got different pressures. Maybe it's from a investment partner, or it's from a leadership team that's got other goals. So your particular role sometimes gets caught in the crossfire.
Yep, for sure. It's nice to have multiple at bats, right? We're not going to do things correctly each time, and I was just reaching out to my boss Josh the other week, and was just kind of shaking my head at the way that I'd mismanaged something, and he just said, we have a lot of at bats. We've set ourselves up to not have the big miss, the big strikeout. So
that must be a great feeling right now at this moment in time.
It's very nice to have that security, and be like, give yourself a little bit of a cosmic pat on the back that you made the right decision with incomplete information, going into a new job, and with some choices to be made, and making the right one feels good.
Right on. So you're hiring AE roles. What kind of process do you go through? Because your definition, and give me a 30-second definition of what your quote unquote A player looks like, and how do you go about not just finding the people that you're looking for, but not missing those people, because they're out there.
Yeah, they are out there.
And
yeah, I think just high level, not anything like it's this person or it's this skill set or whatever, but the things that I've always used and I continue to look for in candidates when I'm doing my personal interviews is attitude, right, and coachability and a history of work ethic or ability to display work ethic in the past. Those are like the behavioral questions I try to ask are around those three things. And
So let me interrupt. I'm going to do this
yeah,
probably more
please.
than once.
Yeah, please do.
I love when I hear that, right? Coachability is a big one that I hear,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody says that.
Yep.
I think it's a bit of a a truism, where that's something
Yeah.
that we need in sales individuals. How do you measure that? How do you just not say, "Oh, I feel like they're coachable," or what's your
Mm-hmm.
process for? I mean, what would you share with somebody who's trying to get to the core of, like, how do I really know this person's coachable? How do I know they're not just showing up and giving me a great interview, telling me what I want to hear, and then they show up and they're not going to change? Because changing human behavior is difficult.
It is. Yeah. I think preparing for the interview is where you start, right? I think too
Okay.
often you don't have questions ready based on the behavior you're trying to identify. So it can be a knee jerk to look at in a history of athletics and say, oh, that person's coachable. But asking some behavioral questions around particular instances where a person has done something that didn't go well, and how they handled that helps you determine whether they went to seek out coaching, and whether or not they received it, or if they are a little bit hesitant to receive it. So I think trying to prep and have some questions ready to go um, around each of those behaviors are important. Prepping the candidate for what questions you might be asking, and making
Hmm.
sure that the process of the interview is clear for both the candidate and the person doing the interviewing, so you're not wasting anyone's time. Um, and yeah, it's also coachability is an interesting one. It's also something that can't be pushed on someone, so you have to look for questions um, that kind of draw out whether they're trying to get coaching for themselves, right? Because I don't care if you're an expert at SMART goals or any sort of coaching framework. It can't be the manager or the boss going to the person saying, I'm going to coach you. It needs to be led by the person. And so what kind of
Yeah.
questions and what kind of history can we look at to see whether or not that person is seeking to be better and seeking to grow? Because that's kind of beyond coachability. One of those things we're trying to see. One of our operating principles is never stop learning. Well, how do we find that out? How do we see if that's true? How do we determine
Yeah.
if they're a fit for that operating principle?
You have a favorite interview question that helps you sort of get cut through the noise?
Just a high level one. Like if I was talking to you, like what's the last thing you've learned that you found fascinating, Jeff? Or opening it up like that, or once we have some banter, just generally curious what people are reading and learning and thinking about in their day to day, and maybe it's outside of your job, like what's caught your attention lately, and giving myself an opportunity to ask better, more clarifying questions off of that.
So a starter or something to get them talking, have a conversation, and really sort of use you leverage your skills to understand whether or not they're a fit for you guys.
For sure, yeah. I
Yeah,
think just like any with a prospect, ask more questions, ask better questions, to try and understand
totally.
what that objection was really about. Is it really that they want to be able to do this, or was there's really a concern about something they've heard about us from a different customer? So yeah.
Do you challenge anybody in interviews? Do you give them a little bit of a hard time or a lot of a hard time?
I want folks to have a really positive experience with us, and to know exactly what the interview is going to look like. So I've got to work this in. I've probably interviewed 300 people. I'd never had one of my interviews assessed until I joined Column, and then our head of people, Melissa, reviewed one of my interviews and gave me feedback, and I was it was just mind blowing, because I realized I had so much stuff to work on. Um, and one of those things was not letting the candidate know what the next steps were, right? They deserve to know that. They're taking their time. So now I make it a point at the top of the interview to say, hey, after this, there's going to be a panel interview. You're going to present something. There's going to be a cultural ad interview. After that, I'll make a decision, and then we're going to move to an offer. So I try to I don't really directly challenge too much. I think if I can't get the information I need in a really amicable way, just by asking thoughtful, caring questions, it's probably more on me than the other person. So
Plus, it's a small team, so it's more of a
Yeah.
figuring out what that culture fit is like, and there's a slippery term is defining culture, which we can get into later if you want to. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's what you got, you know.
It is. Yeah. We're all seeing each other every day, and we do a stand up each morning, and we have to see one another's faces every day. So, yeah, you're right.
So, what are some of the challenges in the hiring marketplace right now? I know that it's a weird time because it seems like everybody's been fired apparently, but there's also this like
Right.
really low unemployment.
Yeah.
What are some of
Isn't
the
it
challenges you're
bizarre?
seeing?
Yeah, we were talking about that, Jeff, in preparation for this call. Just how weird it feels like, just put work aside, just in our personal life, to see the sky falling, but also to be doing decently well in our jobs,
Yeah.
and see other folks do the same. It is strange. Um, I think what you said earlier is a challenge for the top of the funnel people team, is identifying the talent out there top level to kind of move down that hiring
Hmm.
pipeline. Typically this time of year we might be concerned about people bailing out because they're not hitting quota or they're not happy, and
Sure.
you can't really make that call right now because of the way the world is. So I think there's a lot of really talented candidates, and I think weeding through those is tough for that top of funnel team. They're doing I know our team is doing a ton of interviews right now, a ton of qualification calls, and looking at a lot of writing assessments that we have folks do, as
Tell
part
me
of that
more
interview
about that.
process.
Like that sounds interesting. You'd make having them write like so
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
the assessment?
Yeah, it's fun. I think tell a better story of what is one of our operating principles, and so we feel that folks should be able to communicate clearly, via a call like this, or a written word, or a video. And so we've had our candidates submit a writing profile, very short, 300 words, and it's really helped me get to know some candidates. We hired a gentleman by the name of Ross for a BD position a couple months ago, and it was amazing how much information he packed into a page, and how much I was able to fill in a little bit about, I didn't know him, and then I felt like I knew him going into the interview. So it was super helpful, and got to ask him about his 26-day silent retreat in Nepal. And there's some fascinating people out there in sales. It's an amazing career and an amazing path to make good money for yourself and your family, and that writing assignment just helps get to know
Interesting.
people a little bit.
Love that. And is the competition same as it was 6 months ago? I mean, how would you rate finding the right person, or your right A player now versus a year ago?
Yeah, is it the right person? Or is it the same person? Is that what you're saying?
Well, or how hard is it to find that right person?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, and we rely on good sourcing tools, campus recruiting, diversity recruiting. Agencies are also another great option, and then internal referrals. Um, I'm at the point in my career where I have some folks coming through the interview loop right now, that I've worked with in the past, which is super heartwarming. And some other people that are internal are referring other candidates that, I think you want to make sure that that boat's stable. So for me, I'm not going to bring somebody on that was on a team of mine 5 years ago unless I'm happy and I feel like the company's going to be around and I feel like it's a good place to grow and learn and contribute. So I'm starting to reach out now, and I have a candidate
Hmm.
coming through the final round now. But um, yeah, it's difficult, but I think staying involved in stuff like this, and making folks aware of your company and what you represent, and kind of setting yourself a little bit apart from the rest helps. Things like pay transparency,
Yep.
boy,
Big.
certainly helps, right? If you don't have a great candidate that's expecting 2x what you are offering, let's just eliminate that from the start and just say, we do pay transparency here. From the time that you look at the listing to the time that you join internally, you can go and look up what a colleague makes. And I tell you, the most fascinating thing about that for me, Jeff, is nobody cares. Nobody goes, like, I don't go and look. It's there, but it allows us to pay equitably and have a total rewards program, that is I think best in class, and also constantly assessed. Right? We just got a questionnaire through Lattice, which is our
Hmm.
one-on-one management tool, our goals tool. But hey, how do you feel about the total rewards? Like, Are you happy with the stipend you get every quarter for remote work? And feedback cultures are fun to be part of, and you got to be ready to take both the good feedback and the tougher feedback.
So I'm so glad you brought up pay transparency, because I think it's going to be, especially once we pass it here in Washington State officially, or just starts.
Yeah, what is it? Is it Colorado, New York, Washington?
The states are New York and Colorado. Yes, New York and Colorado. California's got a version of it, and there's a lot of localization. So there's places that you wouldn't expect that citywide have some pay transparency. The thing that I think I hear people asking, people, in your position, CROs, VPs of sales, head of sales.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of trepidation. What happens if I post this and then everybody in the office wants a raise?
Yeah.
Or, so give me a couple seconds of like challenges around it. Maybe some of the perceived challenges that you found really weren't a big deal. Because I just hear a lot of fear around that from a corporate side.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think knowing, so we have bands of responsibilities and expectation for each role. So if you go from a BDA to a BDR, there's an increased expectation. It allows me to have a really open conversation about, are you ready for that increase in quota? Are you, why do you feel you're prepared for that? Where's some areas for improvement? So there's a really clear link to the skills that you need to have and the accomplishments that you need to have reached to reach that next band. And that helps. I think it allows for more open and honest communication with folks, about where they're at, where they need to be. And it just cuts out all the I don't know, it just cuts out all the BS too of not knowing. It's very clear that these are the skills you need to have for this role. Here's what you need to have done, and this is what happens when you go up to the next role. Let's talk about why you think you're good to go to that next role, or maybe you don't feel you're good to go to that next role, and we need to coach around things you want to improve on, right? And that feedback because we're doing it every quarter. So
if someone's an AE, for example, and they make X, but you bring on somebody who's either new and for whatever reason they're making X plus Y, does everybody get a raise?
No,
because so they're just it is what it is, and
it is, yeah, and I think
doing the same job, but
yeah. I mean, when they move up to that band, it will be the same, right? We don't really negotiate on base salary. So if an AE2 is moving up into a senior AE role, they will then join that external hire and whatever OTE that external hire received. But I think it's also you can look at their picture. If for us, if we have a couple bands within each of those roles.
That's an interesting strategy. It's like, okay, well, you're in this band, and if I'm going to hire you because you're a little bit better or need a little more requirement, you're just going to become a different band. So your definitions are striated.
Right. So if an AE1 hits their band that they were hired into, they're automatically, if they reach that quota for the next year up into that other band, they can apply to go higher than that. But there's some systems in place that make it equitable and obvious as to why you would want to do that, right? If somebody hits a quota, great, bump them up in that band, regardless of whether or not they're going to receive a new title.
So it sounds like with that kind of structure, pay transparency is a win all the way around.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not work to do, and there's still adjustments to be made. And do we have the right OTE? Do we have the correct base salary to attract the kind of candidates that we're trying to get? What type of org are we trying to be? Are we trying to be an early sales development organization, or are we trying to be a mid to late career destination for folks that have established themselves in the space? So it's not like there's a shortage of other things to worry about. I think the pay transparency, just if we get to the heart of it, it makes people feel like they're not, being done over by the company. And if I'm sitting next to you doing the same role, I know why, and we're being paid the same. And if we're not, I know why and what I need to do to get that pay.
And there's an openness and a trust that seems like it's maybe been missing.
Yeah, exactly.
or at least by default, right? If you don't post it, then it's assumed that maybe something's being hidden.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's it's out there in the open.
Okay, cool. So, but let me circle back and talk a little bit more about some of your candidates. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got this wide net out there, whether it's
Yep.
LinkedIn or one of the platforms, or maybe you're using internal staff, etc.
Yep.
When you've identified the right people and you've decided to bring them on board, what is, because the big thing that everybody wants, of course, is to make sure that those hires stick. Nothing's worse than a
Yeah.
bad hire. Nothing costs a company more than a failed hire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in sales, because it's not just doing a particular job; it's a potential that they should be living up to.
Right.
In theory, talk to me a little bit about sort of how you build that retention model from onboarding to sort of maintenance.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a couple points. Like a couple points that just relying back on my head of people's like her big kind of how to get and retain talent, like recognizing people, giving them development opportunities, and making sure their well-being are established. These are not like groundbreaking things, but to actually think of them in that um, triad kind of helped me understand. So like, do people feel recognized? Are they getting development they need? Do they have a baseline well-being? Back to my boss always says, like, I don't want people thinking about scrounging for rent in New York. We pay based off of San Francisco for the
Okay,
entire country. So we're like, hey, we're paying
you don't worry about it
San
if they're in
Francisco
Tulsa.
rate. We're not. If you're in Tulsa, great. And we actually randomly have some folks in Tulsa.
Okay, yeah.
And then the people team, they look at what's important by generation too. It's kind of fascinating to see like boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, and the different things that are important to them, right? We didn't see student loan repayment in Gen X or baby boomers as much as we do now. And then millennials, specifically like financial counseling is up there of importance for them. And then Gen Z specifically is job security is up there, career growth, mental
So
health support,
that's
DEI.
that's really interesting, and I haven't heard this before in terms of really applying it to different generations. What does it look like in practice? Like you say, Jeff, I've hired you. You're this millennial, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
offering you coaching if you'd like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more of being aware of it when you're if I'm a manager, right? Flexible hours are something that's up there for millennials, and I'm feeling that now. I'm a parent to a 16-month-old, so when I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I didn't care about the flexible hours as much, but now, gosh, I'm 82, so I'm like right in the heart of the millennials. I'm like, wow, flexible hours, that really does matter to me now. And parental leave and having choice with benefits, those are all hit it on the head. So just knowing as you have a
Mhm.
candidate come in, maybe that's extended an offer, looking at our people ops tools and Notion, which is our intranet, for lack of a better term, is just being okay, like, good to know this person's probably or could be interested in these things, and it's just more knowledge to help serve that person better. And then a couple things back to your original question about like how to convert talent. Tops with our people team, in their opinion, is speed, getting back to people and making sure that we're responsive. And then interviewer training, which is what I received. I told you about at the top of the
Mhm,
call for the
mhm.
first time. I've been in
Yeah. What's
startups
this?
for 10 years and had never been critiqued on how I interview people and the experience that I'm passing on. Um, and then making sure it's really clear about our value props. So we're a B Corp, right? And it's surprising. We're a public benefit corporation and a B Corp. And it's amazing if you talk to folks how drawn they are to coming out of the pandemic, wanting something a little bit different other than just like straight up capitalism and grow more, grow
Mhm.
faster, myself included. And it's not just us. I had an offer from Convoy a couple of years ago as well, and they said the same thing, that a lot of their candidates were drawn to Convoy because of uh, the environmental impact.
Mhm.
And so it's just like, wow, that really opened my eyes to folks right now are looking for something a little bit different than just sheer growth at all costs and how rich can I get.
Well, again, it seems like your crystal ball was spot on comparative to sort of what we've seen at the growth at all costs mentality.
Yeah, yeah. People want to feel good about where they're going to in the morning, right? And certainly, what the company's doing is a big part of that. But also, like, are they? We have a charter that we're responsible to as a B Corp. Um, I, as an employee, know that we have to meet certain criteria to maintain that B Corp. So I know we're doing some good as well, and it just makes me feel that much better about what I'm doing every day and who I'm working with and the people that it attracts.
So if you drew the line from the people you're hiring would be who might or would be attracted to that, that sounds like a recipe for pretty strong retention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just feel like when you hire talented people that are aligned around, it's very clear from the moment you start here. We do a couple things that I think are a little bit different. One, you have a home base prepared for you. So when I started on day one, I had a Notion page with a video from my boss, and then he had like 27 items about what software to download and people to meet and things to read in Notion, and it just blew
For
me
those who
away.
don't know, define what Notion is real quick, because that sounds like a really incredible tool.
Yeah, Notion is it's essentially it has a series of pages. So instead of Word documents, a series of pages that can be public or private. So we have some about our pay transparency and our hiring process that are both internal and publicly facing. And it's a place where you can embed images and embed videos, have tasks and lists, and essentially it's a repository for everything within our company. We do use G Suite, but primarily for information exchange, we
Okay,
use
great.
Notion.
Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I
Yeah,
was
no problem. So and then you're encouraged to make a user guide, and a user guide is how I, Kelsey, like to work during the day. A little bit about myself, and then like how you can work best with me. And that just felt so profoundly different to me. Um, it was brought to us from our COO, my boss, Josh Hone, and Claire Hughes Johnson was where he got it. I think she was the COO of Stripe, and it's like, here's how I work in the morning. Like here's where when I do my best work. We're pretty asynchronous as well and remote, so it's like every day, if from 12 to 2 you're out exercising, great. We work around that, and it just felt, I'm still adjusting to it 9 months in, that I don't have to be somewhere at a particular time. I'm sure you're the same way, Jeff. For me, I've been drilled so hard that a job is, you know,
well,
7:30
I'm
to
Gen
5 or
X,
8.
so I'm just still in that. I might as well be a Henry Ford worker.
I do feel that working with these folks that are more new school than me, and I need to adjust. But gosh, that first week I started, I had my home base ready. I wrote my user guide, learning that we do reviews every 3 months, and that there's this pay transparency, and that we have our company values shared, and we have a feedback Slack channel about recognizing others in this remote environment and building the sense of community. So you learn pretty quickly that it's a place you want to be, and then you look at the talent of the folks. We have you feel like you're running with Clydesdales.
That's awesome. And a few weeks ago, I had Dr. Julie Pham on, and I'm not sure if you don't know her or not, but she's into this. She's written a book about respect, how we
Okay.
like to be respected, how we like to communicate that. She talks a lot about, similar to what you're saying, is like, hey, I want you to know up front before anything else happens, here are the things that I prioritize in my world.
Yeah.
That means respect. Because I can say, oh, well, I respect Kelsey. Of course I do. I'm going to treat him the same way that I treat myself in the golden rule, but that doesn't always translate. So I really love what I'm hearing you say, that if I have it right, you're like basically saying you're communicating, letting people know, here's how I work, here are the things that are
Yep.
priorities and important to me, and therefore you have this, again, it's the slippery term, this really great culture.
Yeah, exactly. To my
Which brings
peers,
no, go
if
ahead,
I
sorry.
respect you if I show up on time, right? Right, Jeff?
Yeah,
Like if I showed up to this 3 minutes late, to me, I would take that a little bit personally. So I make sure that I'm on time to meetings. For my direct reports, I don't mind if something's late, but if it's late without me knowing it's going to be late, I don't like that. So just tell me it's going to be late. Like
yeah,
you can lay those things out in a way that really gives people that take the time to look a really straightforward and non-passive aggressive way of saying, gosh, it's all laid out right there. All I have to do is follow these.
absolutely. Well, in my previous world, I was in a Sandler trainer, and
Oh,
they have this
awesome.
thing called the upfront contract, which you probably people, and it's basically saying, hey, look, here's how we're gonna work. Here's how much time we have. Here's how things will go if they don't go great. Here's how they'll go if they go great. And it's
Yeah.
amazing how with that level of buy-in and clarity, that pressure goes out of the room, and that's part of
Yeah.
what I think drives churn is opaqueness and confusion and just not having a clarity about what's really going on, even if it's small, because small can mean important things to some people. Fair.
Yeah, fair. I mean, you said that and it just like set off this alarm in my head that I need to do better in some areas of expectation setting and do a better job of saying, what happens if, right? I think we're doing we're calling it a mid-quarter sales sync tomorrow, just to kind of a general update on things. And gosh, folks want to know like what's going to happen next quarter as best as you can tell them, and what happens if we beat our number and we don't hit our number. And so you just saying that, I was like, I need to do better with expectation setting.
I think it's something that we all can. I mean, I think that leaders should never at this point in time call their reports for a meeting without letting them know exactly what it's about, because there's just too much terror and there's blood in the water.
Totally, yeah. If it's anybody over two individuals, we have like a 5P methodology. It's like I can't rip them all off right now. I always reference it, but it's like, what's the purpose? Who are the people? What's the process of the meeting?
Love
And
it.
and you're putting that in every meeting task, because boy, if you look at a meeting with 10 people, that's a lot of money. So
Yeah.
that was part of our manager training that we did earlier this year. Of hey, if it's more than two people, like you need to tell folks what they're getting out of it and who needs to be there, and kind of.
Well, nobody likes getting the message like, "Hey, I just need a couple minutes on your calendar." What, am I getting fired?
Yeah,
Did I
totally.
do something wrong? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
It'll
No,
freak
no,
people out.
yeah, yeah, give people a heads up for sure.
So this also now is leading us into the other big question of how about the return to office slash work from home future. You
Oh
just
yeah.
you just laid out what I think is maybe the best. How do we manage people in a remote
Hmm.
or even in hybrid environment? What's your take on where we're going with this? Where are we going to where's this going to land? I know there's a lot of paths to the top of the mountain here.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
people it'll fit different things. But what's your sort of take?
I think I love how we do it, Jeff. We're fully remote. I wish I could do 1 or 2 days in an office. I think those office spaces are going to shrink with less, CEO office and just more like a WeWork, but for a individual company like Column, right?
Hmm.
Where we go in and there's a shared space that you can go to as an option. Um, on X Maps out of Missoula, they're a Series B, basically a mapping company, but pretty massive. They have different regional hubs across the country where they call it like a base camp. So there's one in Seattle and one in San Francisco, where they operate that type of setup. We do retreats, and I think that's not that unique. But so we're fully remote, and then 2 to 5 times a year we're meeting at a location that's easy for most of the team to get to, and they're light on presentations, and that's what I want to emphasize. Is like you're still talking about work, you're still talking about how to solve the problems at work, but it's light on programming.
Hmm.
So you're not sitting for 8 hours a day going, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I want to go out and hike. We're at Alta, in Salt Lake City. I want to be outside. You're still talking about work on that hike. So I think remote plus some sort of retreat. And then if you're geographically if you're able to financially or geographically, just to have an office where people can go into. I would love to do 1 day a week in an office, maybe two, but there is zero chance in hell I'm ever going back 5 days a week to an office. And I think a lot of people feel the same. Like, gosh, it's nice to see people in person, but you're never getting me back full time to an office.
I've seen the statistics, and it's something like between 20 and 30% of respondents say they'll never go back to an office.
20 and 30 is it, huh?
Now the caveat there is those are all jobs. So what's your
okay?
Translate that to sales roles or go to market roles in general? I mean, it's way higher, right?
It's got to be. I mean, I think just knowing that it's and right, like we're in tech, and then we're like in a bubble because we're sales in tech,
totally.
And
it's like 90%, right? I mean, like nobody wants to go back.
It must be. Like I just don't. I wonder what our candidate pool would be if we were a 5 day a week in office, 8 to 5 job. I cannot imagine.
It would be tight.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many folks do you talk to? How many folks does Talent Reach talk to in a given week where they're like, yeah, I'll go anywhere?
It's funny because most of the people that we talk to are very happy. I mean, they're salespeople. They're people who like social interactions. Yeah, being in the office is not a deal breaker, but the 5 day a week thing is almost one. I don't think I've talked to anybody who wants to be in all time.
No, the cool thing about it is, Jeff, if you use that money that you're saving on the offices as well, you get to do things like Column Adventures. So every employee at Column gets $900 a quarter to spend on whatever they want. So I joined Pavilion this year and just took the CRO school.
Cool.
But you can go. One gal on our team does a Michelin star restaurant with her partner every quarter. You can book plane tickets with it, and so all that savings from that. I don't know what we were paying. You look at Seattle real estate pre-pandemic, and company of 300 people, we were paying 80, 90 grand a month.
Yeah, it goes a long way when you want to. Yeah.
You feel pretty special getting an offer and being like, all right, $1,200 a quarter to spend on my home office setup and in my my personal learning. Boy.
Well, and I think that's a very good data point about how leaders can run remote teams, because you've got the clarity about what you're about and where you're going and what's important.
Mm-hmm.
You can obviously make it a place where like they really want to stick around.
Yeah.
But I do know there's lots of leaders who are like, nope, the only way production stays high is if people are face to face.
Yeah.
And arguably, I definitely believe that being in person with another human being is more valuable than being remote. So
yeah, or at least knowing them.
Yeah, I mean, like I think you can call me out and tell me I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That it's better in person. I don't think it's better to force people away from, back into a commute or in 5 days, considering the things that we've got that support remote work currently. However, what would you say to somebody who's saying, well, nope, I'm need everybody RTO. It's all got to be in office.
Well, yeah. What does RTO stand for? Is that like?
Sorry, return to office.
Return to office. Okay, I haven't heard that acronym.
Apologies. Shouldn't have done that.
No, that's okay. Good luck. I just, it's really interesting to, I mean, every industry. I'm interviewing folks that sell, industrial cleaning machines where it's always been outside sales and they've switched inside, and not seen a fall off in revenue. So you have to end up answering the question why, other than control and oversight or the perception of such. Would we do this? And I agree. I like seeing somebody in person and getting to know them and having that. It helps build trust, and you get those little idiosyncratic moments to bump into them on the elevator and have fun stories to tell. Doing something in person is important, but if you're trying to grow that way in tech and specifically on a sales team, I won't be applying to your company anytime soon.
So the answer is good luck. It'll be interesting to see what some of the return to office mandates, how well they work out, if they last.
Yeah, and better than me. Are they still? Are there companies out there of size still waiting to implement those?
Oh yeah.
or have they
Yeah.
already kind of happened, or where are we at with that?
It's all over the map. There's a
Okay.
wide range, but there's some. We've got some people that we work with who want people in office 5 days a week. We've just
Okay.
and it's very reasonable. I understand. I get it. It just there's a bit of a mismatch when it comes to what the talent pool is open to.
Yeah, I think it'll be even more interesting over time when we have some historical performance to look back on
Yes,
to do some to do some comparison, right?
it's
And
the
maybe
it's
I'm wrong. Maybe it's the teams that showed back up vastly outperform remote teams, and then maybe the return to office happens in 5 years when that information comes out.
Could be, and it could be that people who demand the extra performance know they pay for it, and they make it better for someone to. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and commute, but
Yeah.
most of these tech companies are in expensive places to live,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's an extra burden that I know that especially people who are sort of millennial Gen Z are not as open to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's really really I think one of the most interesting conversations in our world. The other one is before we run out of time, put on your wizard hat or get out your crystal ball.
Yeah.
What's going on in tech sales, both from like who you're selling to and the marketplace you're seeing, as well
Yeah.
as like the hiring layoffs world. I mean, what's going on? Like I predict there's going to be a slowdown in any layoffs because it's the holidays. Are we
Yeah.
done? Have
Yeah.
we seen the bottom? Is it going to get worse? How long?
Yeah, it's really fun being a prognosticator because my wife's a financial advisor with Edward Jones too, so I get to see the financial end of it and then the
All
real
right.
world tech element of it. And I think we just saw that Amazon was extending layoffs into January. But gosh, when I've seen so many headlines, I don't know how many companies are left that haven't done significant layoffs already. Twilio, Amazon, Facebook, you name it. So, um, I'm personally hoping that both with the financial markets and the tech markets, we get a less whipsaw 2023, and we're kind of at the crater, and we slowly dig ourselves out. I'm okay if it's not a a hockey stick up, but just like, all right, is this where we were supposed to be the whole time, and now we get to slowly build back up? I'm good with that. But whatever it is, I hope it's not as is just back and forth and up and down as it was in 22. But
Yeah. So
who
you
knows?
predict we'll have some stability.
I'm 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 calling for
I
more
won't hold. I
stability in
won't hold you to
23.
it. Don't worry.
No, yes. Maybe I'm not calling for it, and I'm just crossing my fingers under the
Yeah.
table for it. But boy, I think some stability sounds nice.
Well, I think certainly those of us who are optimists, think that sounds like a great thing. I see other articles, I see other comments, I see people who also have their crystal balls out who are a little more on that doomsayer side of, well, tech is done, and the bottom isn't anywhere close, and the bloodbath's just starting. You know, are you seeing any of that?
No, I mean, I don't think things can get weirder than they have. I look at I've been following Twilio closely because they purchased the previous company I was at, and it's just so hard to understand what's happening. Like, I believe in them as a business, and they have a bunch of money in the bank, and it's hard to go how did they really lose that much value, or were they really overvalued that much? And it's not just for them; it's for everywhere. I
Hmm.
just think if companies providing value to their customers, and they're being managed soundly, they're not the FTXs of the world, they're going to come back, and we just have to practice what my wife always says, and set a plan and stick to the plan, and don't do anything hasty. Keep showing up and taking care of your
Yeah.
employees, and we'll climb back out.
Good. That sounds like good
Things
news.
can't be stranger next year, can they, Jeff? Tell me no. Like,
Listen, we've lived through a couple of years of wild strangeness. I would like that. I'd like to be some stability, but I also couldn't tell you things couldn't get weirder, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
so, and I had a comment to come to circle back to the candidate side. So two
Hmm.
things. Like, and field either one of these you want at first. One is sort of advice you'd give to candidates, considering that there's both a lot of roles to be filled in tech
Yeah.
sales, but there's also a higher competition.
Yeah.
What guidance would you give to somebody who's looking to land their next tech sales role?
Gosh, the previous 2 years to starting at Column were crazy for me in terms of I got rejected from a ton of jobs and considered changing career trajectories, and I was always in a rush. And if you have the ability to not be in a rush and take the soonest, like the earliest and most convenient job that you can, take that time. I went from ZipWhip to Oyo, which cratered in the pandemic, and I just never, looking back now, I'm like, I should have relaxed a little bit instead of just getting right back on the interview train. But beside that philosophical,
That's good
there's
advice.
a lot of people that can't take that rest. If you find yourself in the interview process, bring your energy, bring your preparedness, be thoughtful. There's a lot of information available that you can go get. So learn as much about the business as you can. If there's a way to get an account, sign up. You'll probably be able to discover a bug or something that should be fixed, and don't be afraid to ask about it.
Okay.
And try to learn as much about the people you're going to be working for and the culture that awaits you as you can. Because there's nothing worse than stepping foot in. I've done this too. I've started at a place and I as a head of sales, and I quit 40 days later. And I should have done more research and learned what I was getting myself into. So take your time if you can. Be prepared. Bring your energy. Learn about the company. Learn about the people behind the company. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Learn about things they've done. And try to find a place where you can be for a number of years. Let's stop jumping every year, every other year, and let's put together some stretches of work for you at Talent Reach, me at Calm, 5, 7, 10 years, and see what happens then.
It's interesting that you said that, because there's been so much moving around, and in the past, job hopping, it would have been this horrible thing, and there's a little bit of that left over in hiring. Where it's like, well, I don't want somebody who hasn't. But I mean, I don't know anybody. Not anybody. It's very few people have been at one place over the past 3 years.
Yeah, and if they have, they may be laid off now, right? But boy, we can really create some great stories and some amazing change at our companies and our own lives if we stay in and get some good stretches of tenure. So that's what I'm hoping to see from myself and candidates coming in, the folks that work for me. And when it's time for them to move on, we need to do that gracefully and help them with their next role, and hope that they come back to us in 5 years, like my friend Daniel is doing right now, boomeranging back to me 5 years later after he left ZipWhip. So take care of people, and they'll come work for you again.
So the overall theme I'm hearing from you really is be patient, do things the quote unquote right way, measured, and you keep people around. And if they leave, it's for the best, and if they'll come back, it's for the best. And
try to not disheartened. You take it so personally, but the folks that are interviewing you are interviewing a lot of candidates. There's a ton of talent out there. You'll find the role. Especially if you're coming from another tech job, there's somebody that needs your skills. Don't beat yourself up when you get rejected. I've been rejected a ton, and
well, we're in sales. We're supposed to be used to rejection, right?
Yes, but it still hurts.
I don't think it still doesn't sting, right?
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to stick your LinkedIn profile up.
Oh, thank you.
We have to talk about your profile name there. It's we have a long string of numbers.
Yeah, I guess I have like an ID.
You can just change that 5202 rocks, so it'd be Kelsey Klevenberg rocks.
There we go.
But if people were interested, if I have some star A player AEs out there that are interested, what's the best way for them to sort of get into your hiring funnel?
Drop into my DMs, and I'll get you through that, and you'll be involved in a very tight interview process where you know exactly where you stand and what's coming next. That's what I can tell you. I can't promise you the job, but I can promise you a good candidate experience.
Hey, listen, I kind of want to go through the process now. It sounds like a great experience.
Let's do it.
Awesome, man. Kelsey, anything else you want to close out with? I really appreciate you spending so much time with me.
No, thanks for the work you're doing, and yeah, if you're a company out there looking for a good no frills, no BS talent agency, Talent Reach is it. We sourced at ZipWhip. We did some OYO sourcing. I've used Jeff, and I would use this Jeff, both Jeffs, to understand the market and where I might go and what might be a good fit based on my needs and experience. So create those relationships with your trusted talent agencies.
Well, I appreciate the plug. I did not pay you to do that, but
No, that's unpaid. It's the truth.
Love working with great people like you and understanding what makes an A player. So so hopefully you just go rock it, and if I can do anything for you, let me know.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Take care. Appreciate it coming on.